Hi, welcome to another edition of Between Two Nuts. Today I'm sitting down with the essential nostalgic, the Affro Show, and you can find him on different platforms such as YouTube on his YouTube channel, where he does a lot of throwbacks to awesome games, music, and a lot of other goodies. But thanks for being on the one-on-one with me today. I really appreciate you taking the time. The Afro Show, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Mad Squirrel. It's a very interesting time to be here, and I'm really happy to be here. Obviously, I love these kind of things, so this is up my alley. As for what I do, so basically, I do normally retro gaming videos. I tend to do throwbacks, as you said, and I also tend to do these massive long videos about a singular game, for example. Driver 2, where I go into the history of the developers. I go into the gameplay and talk about it in detail. The sound, the graphics, everything. Then, if the game has a career mode or a story mode, I'll go over that in detail. Basically, what my show is about is it's about nostalgia. It's about retro games. It's about putting you back into a game that you may or may not know, and going through it in detail, why, what made it tick, why it's good or bad, how it got to that stage of development, or why was it even made in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
and then what you, the viewer, can expect if you were to play through the game, and then kind of giving you your own sense of what you feel about the game when you watch it. Basically, what I'm saying is, when you watch the game, I don't always just directly say this is this, this is that, this is this. The graphics are the, I may comment on it, but I
Mm-hmm.
won't directly say the graphics are suck. The graphics are awful unless I think they are awful. It's
Right.
meant to give you, the viewer, a chance to kind of form your own conclusion, but using my commentary to guide you on what you can expect. And if the game looked good or interesting to you, you might pick it up.
Right.
you
And
know it's it's to basically it's to give these games more leash of life, because most people are moving on to the new stuff,
mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of retro games that are forgotten, or were only released in Europe, or only released in America, or were only exclusive to said regions because of how things were back then. So it's just nice for people to see, what's out there. And because I'm European, for example, Americans won't know what we got in Europe unless you look online. So it's nice for you guys to see what we got compared to what you got,
Right.
and then you can compare and contrast and see, who got the better deal.
Yeah, exactly. When you look at it's just like the Asian markets in comparison to the United States, like what games were actually being made available versus what we never really saw here in the States. You're like, oh, okay. I feel like we got gypped a little bit, but okay.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, TV standards were different back then. So you guys and the Japanese have NTSC, whereas we
Mm,
run PAL, and you guys had the higher frame rate, but we had the high resolution.
right,
But obviously, you guys had the benefit of having a lot more accessibility to 480p content, like Xbox and PS2 and
yeah,
GameCube. I mean, you guys, right? And this, you won't believe this. Now, you guys and us got PS2 component cables, right? And we
right.
had games that could, offer us 480p visuals, right? But you guys went a step further. You guys had, I think, two or three games that could support 1080i on PS2. We never got that in Europe.
Really?
Yep, we never got that. For example, Gran Turismo 4, one of my favorite games of all time, you guys and the Japanese had the 1080i and for even 480p different visuals, right? We only got 576i, so we never got the progressive scan, and we never got 1080i for that
Why?
game.
Why did you guys get punished? I don't
I know.
understand.
But the funny thing is, right? Um, Another game that got progressive scan, Tekken 5, great game, great
Right.
game.
Mm-hmm.
You guys and the Japanese got 480p, right? If your TV and setup could allow it.
Right.
We got the 16 by 9 aspect ratio, but no 480p. So we're stuck with 576i. Although we did have 60 hertz, so we could have the same frame rate, but not the progressive scan. So we
Right.
got the worst end of the deal there. But luckily, quite a few games here did have progressive scan, like Tekken 4, Black, but Burnout. I think Burnout Revenge had it here.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't like completely shafted. unless you had an Xbox or a GameCube console here, you guys had on the Xbox, original Xbox, you had 480p and even 720p, right?
Right.
And on GameCube, you guys had quite a few games that supported 480p, yeah?
Yes. Yes.
In Europe, if you had either the Xbox or GameCube in Europe, you were only limited to 576i. No game in this continent ever came with progressive scan on those two consoles. Not one.
That's insane.
Yeah, they were all taken out of the European releases.
See, that's. I feel like the UK got. Man, they got. You guys
Not
got.
the UK, Europe. So not just us, all of Europe.
Oh,
So Australia,
oh,
just
ouch.
yeah,
Everybody.
yeah. Everyone who had an Xbox or GameCube here never got progressive scan at all.
That's the
So
saddest thing ever, and it blows my mind because it feels like this was like what, the late 90s, mid
this was the early
90s.
2000s.
Oh my God. And
Obviously, the
yeah.
the Xbox came out way back in 2001, and then the PS2 came out in the year 2000.
Right.
The new millennium, which
Mm-hmm. And
But
honestly, the PS2 that really. I mean, we had. Did you guys? Now here's the question: with the Dream, did you ever play on Dreamcast?
yes, we had Dreamcast. Yes.
Okay. I mean, that was one console, I think, that it was a lost opportunity of growth. Like, it was so, I think it was very progressive considering, like, I don't know what I don't know what your standards were there in Europe in general on that particular console, but meaning, like, what they were limiting on those systems or not. But to me, it was,
As
it,
yeah,
I,
as far as I'm aware, the Dreamcast, the VGA support was still here in Europe.
okay,
So, select games. I think most of the games on the Dreamcast had 480p via VGA. So,
okay.
I think in Europe anyway, I believe that's still the same. I don't know if some games were different, but VGA was definitely on the Dreamcast here.
I
So that's the
wondered,
good news.
okay,
Yeah.
good. Because I was like, that system was, I thought it was well done. And it
Everyone loves the Dreamcast.
it really was a well done system. And I mean, I had because I noticed you did a video about the Sega Saturn,
Oh, I love the Saturn. I got it last year. Oh my God, yes.
and I started reminiscing about the Dreamcast and all those, because I remember Sega was one of those systems that I had friends who had them. I didn't have one myself because they were really pricey at the time, but they were so I mean, they were cheaper than some consoles, but it was still higher. It was a high priced system, but it was a beautiful system. And
Hmm.
I never got a chance to really play the Saturn enough. But the Dreamcast, I had an opportunity, and man, I loved that system so much. It just,
Yeah,
it was unfortunate that it was a lost opportunity to move on with Sega, like, you know what I mean, to move forward and build on that. I mean, they kind of did, but it just never took off, and it felt like it got shoved under the rug when the PS2 came out.
but
It
the
was
problem
gone.
is, yeah, but the problem was that Sega kind of did themselves in.
Right,
They were on fire with the Mega Drive or the Sega Genesis, as you would call it, where you
right.
are,
Mm-hmm.
and they were really, really on top with that. But the problem was that they released the Sega CD, which didn't, that was a commercial disappointment, but not the end.
Yeah.
But then they released the Sega 32X far too close to the Sega Saturn and PlayStation. So they
Uh,
obviously bombarded everybody from the Sega fan base with too much at once. That
yeah.
wasn't worthwhile. If they just released the Sega CD and left it, they would have been okay.
They
But
just
they,
pushed
but
it
they,
too much.
yeah. And then when the Sega Saturn came out, it was more expensive than PlayStation. The PlayStation had a better foothold than the Saturn, despite releasing early where you from.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the PlayStation was just the more appealing system, and
Yeah.
Sega just was, they struggled. They learned their lesson, and they obviously the Dreamcast when it first came out was a smash hit, but it was too late. The PlayStation fan base was huge. PS2, massive, massive. Everyone wanted one, um, and obviously the Japanese recession kicked in the
Mm-hmm.
year 2000. So companies like Sega had to cut costs, and then obviously PS2 had DVD. So for a lot of people, their
Yeah.
first DVDs was a PS2, whereas Dreamcast didn't have that. There was a lot of problems at Sega, and there's lots of little problems that all accumulated into one massive problem. I think another issue with the Sega Saturn, there was no dedicated brand new Sonic game
Right.
at release or during its lifetime. I know there was Sonic R, and there was the port of Sonic 3D Blast, and you know,
Yeah.
but they were ports, and Sonic R was a racing game. You know, they weren't like proper Sonic games. That
Yeah.
didn't help either.
It didn't. I don't know many people like that was one big hit was them not doing the Sonic thing because that was it's kind of like what Mario is for Nintendo.
Mm.
Sega should have done the same in in the context of even if it was a kind of like Game Boy when they came out. Game Boy originally they had Super Mario Land, and I loved this is the original Game Boy when it was a brick and in a green screen and they had problems with lines on the screens and things like that. But Nintendo really handled their customer service for the Game Boy very well when it rolled out, like, 'cause they had some known issues with the screens where it would have the lines that would show up on the side. And mine did this, and so it was a known issue. I sent it back to Nintendo. They fixed it, sent it back, and put basically a lifetime warranty on that particular Game Boy, saying if it does it again, the screen issue will automatically replace it for you with a new screen, or replace the system depending on the issue. And the reason why too this was a big deal at the time was because a lot of military members that were during the Gulf War were stationed abroad. They had Game Boys and they were having issues with sand getting into the systems, wind issues, all these other things that were going on in field that Nintendo was doing free replacements for everyone that was stationed in the U.S. military who had Game Boys with these types of issues, whether that was the lines on the screen or damage due to climate.
It's actually a good story, actually, because I think during that same time period in a magazine, I think it was Nintendo Power, not too sure, but there was a picture of a Game Boy that was caught in a bomb blast, but the Game Boy still worked.
Oh yeah, and I think that system was like a brick. I'm telling you, it was like a Nokia phone from back in the day. It was a great little system. I remember the games I had only had like a handful of games for it. I had like Mario Baseball, Super Mario Land, and Tetris, of course, because I think Tetris came with it. But
Yeah.
it was a great little system. And then, of course, when they got color, I was like super excited about this color system.
So
And
that
then
was my first Game
oh
Boy, actually, the color. Yeah, I was about 7 years old. So this was 2000. So this
yeah,
was a little bit after it first launched. And I got that. Well, my brother got that. And the only game we ever got for it was Pokemon Crystal.
well,
That's it.
well, that's a good. I mean, that is a great
Great game.
first
Great
game,
game.
right?
Yeah, great game. But
It
that would
was.
be
Now, did you guys ever have like what was your first console that you got outside of like let's say handheld? But what was your first console?
my first console was the PlayStation 1, hence why I've got a strong attachment to PlayStation consoles in general.
Right.
I got it I first played on it in 1997, so I was only 3 or 4 at the time. And even though I was just a small kid, I knew exactly what to do with this plastic thing in my hand that I had no idea what it was. It was called a controller. And, I didn't know what that meant, but somehow with this plastic thing in my hand, I was able to make things on a TV screen move with my every command. And I thought, wow,
Right.
it's like I'm actually doing something. And obviously, my first game was V-Valley, a game that I still have in my collection. That's hence my love of racing games, along with toy cars and stuff like that. After that, I played Demo 1, which I recently bought. I actually covered it on my channel. And then I had a year later, Gran Turismo, one of my favorite racing games of all time. I played games like Abe's Odyssey. That game I could never do well in. And it was for a 4 or 5 year old kid at that time playing on a thing that he didn't know what it was. It was great. But when I was a bit older, when I was 5 in Christmas of '98, I got my own PlayStation system. I've actually got it in my closet right now. And I had Gran Turismo, Call Borders 2, and Demo 1 with me. That was the first 3 games I was given.
Right.
And over time, I built up a collection. But the PlayStation was my first ever console, along with PC, because I used to play PC with my dad as well. After that, I got the PS2 in 2002, along with the Game Boy Color, and then not long after the Game Boy Advance, which I still have.
Yeah.
And then it goes from there. But the PS2 is my longest kept console. It's the console I have the most games for, and it's my most passionate console because, well, it pretty much lived with me and still has lived with me for 18 years now. It's great.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember, like everyone had their console they had preferred. It was always like there was that competition between Xbox and the PlayStation. So that was the big one. But Nintendo always just kind of, hung out. That was my first introduction to console was a Super NES. And then after that, I would always get the new ones that would come out. It was the Game Boy, or not Game Boy, I'm sorry, the 64, and then the GameCube, which I was disappointed by the GameCube. I mean, for myself, I was disappointed by it. I thought it was a good system for what it was, but it just lacked potential.
Mm.
And I didn't really care for these mini CDs that came with it because I think
Oh yeah.
everybody was going in that
Oh my
direction.
God. Oh no, no. Honestly, I've seen some. You know how some games used to be ported on Xbox, PS2, GameCube.
Yes.
The amount of games that were missing or had shorter soundtracks than the PS2 version. I just thought, what? Why? And I thought, oh yeah, because they're using those stupid mini discs.
Yep.
Unlike proper DVDs, which had 3 times more storage than a mini DVD or what the hell it was called they were
Yeah.
using.
They
I
were
just
just
thought,
it was a
yeah.
waste, and it was a disappointment in that way because around the time that I got the GameCube, that's when the PS2 was had just come out or something.
Oh, the
Yeah,
PS2 was already out by the time the GameCube had come out.
yeah, it was like relatively within that window, and I remember thinking, well, this isn't much of a competition. I'm a Nintendo. I thought, oh, well, I'll give it a chance because I'm a Nintendo person, but there was no competition there. The PS2 just blew it away for numerous reasons, but the
Well,
graphics quality, everything, obviously.
well, it's kind of funny because I mean, yeah, the PS2 is the most successful console ever. It destroyed anything in its path, but it wasn't the best. It wasn't the most powerful console. The GameCube was actually a little bit more powerful, and the Xbox, well, it could do
Right,
se- it could do 720p HD before that was even a mainstream thing.
right.
So,
It's
but
just that,
but what the PS2 had wasn't power. It was huge third party support, excellent first party support,
mm-hmm,
and that in-store base from the PlayStation that then carried over to the PlayStation 2. And it had lots of exclusive games that you could only find on PlayStation 2 that
right.
obviously have become huge, huge classics today.
And from a consumer standpoint, it was the novelties that I also had. Like, just for
Mm,
me, one of the big ones was the ability to play DVDs or CDs or
yeah.
whatever. I mean, the GameCube couldn't do this, and plus the other thing is with the quality of the discs that would came with the GameCube. I can't tell you how many of those little discs either got scratched like super quickly. I mean, I know the PS2 had the same issue because it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But the discs seem to have more problems with the GameCube, at least the experiences and friends I had who did have a GameCube, there was always issues with the discs themselves, issues reading the discs. If they had even a slight smudge or, damage to it, it would act up. And I know the PS2 had its moments too, but it wasn't as aggressive, it seemed, because with the GameCube, you're pretty much just playing games on it. That's it. That was the limitations of it. And whereas PS2 came out in Xbox a little bit, but Xbox was still paled hugely in comparison to a
Yeah.
PS2. PS2 just blew everybody out of the water as far as not just like you were saying, the catalog of games was huge. I mean, Final
Huge. Yeah.
Fantasy was that. Oh my God! Like when that came
Yep.
out, oh,
Oh yes, Final
that,
Fantasy X. I had a demo of it in 2002. Blew me away. 8-year-old me
right.
went, "What the hell is this?"
Oh,
But
I had never, and this is the truth. I had never played Final Fantasy prior to that. I didn't get it.
same here, same here, same here. I didn't even know what Final. I'd never heard of Final Fantasy. You see, this is the issue with me as well. People go, "Oh, but what do you buy?" The thing is, right? I only heard of PlayStation, and that's it. I never saw a commercial for Nintendo, or if there
Mm-hmm.
was one, I ignored it. There was no commercial for Xbox. If there was, I ignored it.
Right.
All I knew was PlayStation. I'd played it already at a cousin's house. PlayStation 2, because obviously it was everywhere. I never saw a Nintendo. Or the first time I saw a different console besides PlayStation was the Xbox 360
Mm-hmm.
years later. But I didn't want that. In fact, I never got a new console until the PS3, and I didn't get that until 2012.
Wow.
My brother got the Xbox 360 in 2008 or 7, so he was obviously ahead of me, but I just stuck with the PlayStation 2. But nowadays, I just play on either the PlayStation 2 for recording purposes or PlayStation 1 or Saturn or I've
Right.
also got I forgot to tell you, I've also got the Mega Drive and SNES.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got them. I've got the SNES, I've got the Mega Drive, I've got the Game Boy
Now,
Advance, I've got the
is that stuff that you had held on to or found you went
no no no
hunting?
the no no, no. I mean the Game Boy held on to had that since 2003.
Right.
PS2 had that since 2002. PS1 had that since 1998. The Saturn, I've only had that since 2019. The Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo, I've only had
Mm-hmm.
those since 2018.
Okay. Okay.
So obviously, though all those consoles are new to me, I only started getting into retro gaming more seriously in the past 4 years, and
Oh.
now
It's
I'm trying to get. I'm now trying to get more Sega Saturn games. I've got the Japanese games now. I've got an Action Replay. I've got, I've got a decent amount of SNES games. Now I'm looking to improve my Mega Drive collection. So I've got a long way to go.
but still though, I mean, now we're in a wonderful. I can't tell you how amazing it is to go online and be like, you know what? I'm trying to remember this game, and you look for it, and there it is. You're like, oh,
Mm,
and there it is. Before you're kind of hunting. You're talking to friends in other states. You're like, I'm trying. You're talking to friends abroad, trying to figure out how to find these games, or at least find stores that you can turn to kind of hunt for them now because of the internet. And I know this is, you kind of grew up with the internet, but
yeah,
it's
the
still
dial up and all that.
oh god.
Dial up. Yep, I remember dial up.
Terrible.
Yes, it is now, but back then it was the future, one of
Oh
the
yeah.
greatest inventions of mankind.
Hearing that connection was like the best thing in the world. You're like, and you're like, we have connected to the motherland. But things have changed so drastically. But being able to hunt these games down now is
On your
tremendously
phone,
easy
and on your phone as
on
well.
your phone. And I'm like, I hate smartphones in some ways because I don't like the whole like being too accessible. Like that drives me kind of nuts. So I always have my phone on silent to because it's not that I hate technology. I just hate being like accessible by a phone. It's like a leash. But I love the idea that I can go to my phone, I can price check something, check a store, call a store, or even go online really quickly to see price check something and be able to find out, okay, is this game cheaper if I do it this way, or will it be cheaper if I just do a direct download, depending on if I want the actual physical, which is
Well, to me, my favorite thing in the whole world is eBay.
mm-hmm.
I am the eBay master. I can always find things cheap there. I get what I need there. Well, 95% of the time.
Right.
But going back to the retro consoles for one moment, it's one thing to find them and play them. The thing is, though, is that most people now will struggle to get real hardware to look good today due to resolutions and so on. But for me, with my PS2, you'll see it when you watch my upcoming video
Mm-hmm.
this Sunday coming, as of recording this video. But how I do it, although I still need to change a few things because it's not perfect. So I use component cables, which is the best you can get, or RGB, depends on what your setup prefers. But I think component is the easier route,
Yeah.
at this stage. So I use component cables. I then use a component to HDMI box that upscales the whatever the resolution is to 1080p HD.
Mm-hmm.
Then it'll go through the capture card, which is my Elgato HD capture. Then it goes into my 4K TV, and of course, while this is happening, the signal from the PS2 will be 480, no, 576i or 480p if a 480p game is obviously there, but no matter what the resolution will be, even PS1 games, it'll go up to 1080p. And there's a little trick, by the way, that everyone should know.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a PS1 consoles typically output 240p. So back in the CRT days, that was great. It worked well on CRT TVs,
Right.
which output 480i or 576i in obviously my country. But if you try and do that on a PS2 console to a non-CRT console, the PS1 game won't display unless it's 480i. But there's not many of those on the PS1.
Right.
So if you want to play PS1 games using component and not RGB, you buy an upscaler like mine, so a
Mm-hmm.
component to HD upscaler, and the game will display.
That's amazing.
Every single game, even the 240p ones, which is the majority of the PS1 library, will display. Now, I'm not saying it will display correctly,
Right.
but it'll be more than good enough.
I
It
have
will get
sat
the job done.
I have looked at I had looked at a few of your videos before, when you're just going over different games and things like that.
Yeah.
But I noticed some of the gameplay was very clean. And I was like, that looks pretty good. I mean,
I mean,
considering the
yeah.
age of the I keep into consideration, okay, we're looking at different systems here and it's been a while, summary. But they look good considering,
Yeah. I
the
mean, to be fair,
resolution. Yeah.
up until my Driver 2 video, all the games I used were emulation because, obviously I used my actual
Uh,
disc in
yeah.
the emulation, but I used it 'cause obviously at the time I had no way of doing what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
But starting from my what was it, the Sega Saturn Games 2 video, I finally switched to using real consoles. So
Ah,
for example, if you watch the PS1 games in 2000, that was using my S video box. So that was using real hardware through S video to 1080p. But since that video, I've ditched S video, even though it's a good connection.
right.
And I'm now using component, but doing the same thing. So now the video is cleaner, more
Right.
detailed. So, but
I've heard
yeah,
I've heard good things about the doing components over, third party stuff. It's much more of a direct cleanliness to whatever you're recording, and you can do a lot more with that footage too. There's a site I was referred to a while ago by Stig, the GOG
hmm,
site,
yeah,
and
OGOG.
yes,
I've got
and
that.
I love it. And
I love it too.
it's there's a lot of games on there that one of the ones I want they don't have up yet. I've been voting I want it anyway, but it's because I only played PC for a very long time. I went from Nintendo to PC, and so I mean I had played on the PS2. I didn't own one. It was just I went to PC because it was like this whole new world, and there was a lot more going on with graphics as far as with
Yeah,
PC. So I kind of wanted that advantage in that sense, and also too there was a lot more games at the time that were still being developed and coming out. But I love the GOG site in that sense because there's a lot of games on there that I thought I'd lost forever, and
yeah,
so
same here, same here.
being able to reattain them was great because they are cleaned up. They've been compatible, made compatible for your computer, desktops, and so on. But there was a game called Black and White, and
Oh,
do you know what I'm talking about?
my brother absolutely loves that game. We had it on the PC in the early 2000s, and we both couldn't stop playing that game. We
Oh my
we love
God.
it. We love that game so much.
People have been voting on that one a lot to get to get the rights for it, so that way we can get that updated. I want it so bad. I want that game so bad because I want to throw peasants into the ocean, and I
Yeah,
want to do all those things. And for those who don't know, Black and White was this game where you have like you're a god, you're a god essentially, and you have a little like I guess a demigod or like pet, and your pet you could have pets in the game that like kind of like the villagers worship as your representation, and you run basically your god. So it's a wonderful game, and you can be an evil god, you can be a good god, and all these things. But everything decision you make determines that fear or love of your people, and the worship too. To increase worshiping, so you can increase your power. All these things. It's a fantastic, and for the time that it came out, it was pretty advanced. As far as graphics, when it was impressive enough for PC. I just remember really loving it, and oh man, I'm trying to. It was one of those things that not a lot of people, appreciate. But there was a sequel to it also too, and then he had
yep, we got that as well.
and the extension,
Yeah,
extension one with the Creature Isle, which was an
yeah,
expansion.
we got Black and White 2 as well. We got both games, and I didn't like the second one that much. My brother liked
Yeah,
it, but I didn't care for the second one. But speaking of the games that were potentially forgotten forever, two games for me. So one was Empire Earth, which is on GOG. Great game. One of my favorite games of all time. It was one of those games that my dad used to play with me as well. I used to watch him before I played it, and I was better than him. But that's not the point. Point was, it was a nice family kind of game.
yeah.
But the other game, now this one's more important, and this one will be in the video again for this Sunday, recording this video. It's a game called Outlaws. Now, Outlaws, I don't know if you know Outlaws.
I that one barely remember this game. I barely. This was through Lucas Arts, wasn't it?
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
Okay. So
You do know it. Okay, so it's not just me. Good.
yeah, I barely. This is the thing. I barely remember, but the only reason I remember it is because it went through LucasArts, and it was still, it had the same. I liked it. I mean, I didn't play it enough,
Oh
but
my God. I used to play it as a kid all the time with my dad. Again, it was another game that we used to play with my dad. He got it on release day. I don't know how, but whatever. But I recently got the physical copy back. However, I had to download it on GOG to get it to work
right.
last year. I tell you what, I tell you what, Outlaws has the best soundtrack ever. Just period. It has the best soundtrack of all time. The soundtrack, like I said, in my upcoming video, I do mention this as well. So I won't go into too much detail, but it just is. The soundtrack is so accomplished, so well done, so masterfully made. Nothing I've ever listened to beyond Outlaws even comes close. It feels like it was made by the gods of music. It's that fantastic.
And
I mean,
the
it's
composer for that on is Clint
Bajarkian, yeah.
yes, and he did the soundtracks for Uncharted, Golden Abyss, and
Did
Sam
he?
and Max Hit the Road are some of the albums he worked on. He did get a BAFTA Games Award for original score. Um,
He deserves it. Honestly, I didn't know if he actually won any kind of award for Outlaws, but I said in my video that he absolutely should if he hasn't already. And you know, for me, I mean, the game was already a lot of fun. There's a lot of good qualities about Outlaws. But the soundtrack is what it. When you sometimes have like pieces of a puzzle, and you're missing that one piece. The
yeah,
music to me is that piece. It's that turning point where it turns the game from a good, albeit standard, first person shooter game into a stunning game because that piece of the puzzle makes everything else better, and
eh,
it's just wonderful.
yeah. Clint has a very impressive resume. He also did A Bard's Tale. He was a composer on that. He was a composer on World of Warcraft. And a composer for Antidote, Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb,
Yeah,
Tourist,
he also was the composer for Star Wars Dark Forces.
yes, and TIE
Also,
Fighter also.
yeah, for some
Busy.
reason, whenever I say Dark Forces, I always say like Dark Forces. I don't know why. I
You're
don't
like,
know why.
it's more menacing.
Yeah, I don't know why I say it that way. It's great though. But no, honestly, Clint Bajarkian. Honestly, I wish I could meet or talk to him and just tell him how much I appreciate that soundtrack from Outlaws and just how he's basically influenced my life. Because whenever I'm down for inspiration, I instantly listen to Outlaws, or when I need a benchmark, I listen to Outlaws. Whenever I need a good soundtrack, I listen to Outlaws.
Oh yeah.
Whenever it's
He won his BAFTA in 2010 for the best original score for Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. He was nominated in 2007 also for God of War 2, and also Layer in 2007,
Oh,
same year.
Layer is a sad, sad game. It's got a sad history. It could have been great. It's sunk factor five forever. It was a
Uh-huh.
it was a great game. Well, potentially a good game, ruined by its awful use of the PlayStation 3 six-axis control thing. But that's another story for another day. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I'm
still,
but no. But
it,
if you've not listened to the Outlaw soundtrack in a while, I beg of you, please listen to it, please.
I'll have to look it up because there's plenty of gameplay for Outlaws on YouTube,
Not
and
even gameplay, just listen to the soundtrack. Forget the
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
because you can also tell, like, I listen to music separately and then I'll listen with the gameplay, and it makes it's such a significant difference because I think like soundtracks in general can be underappreciated. You just the one of your videos. I don't know if you've released it yet. I apologize, but you were talking about music soundtracks in video games and just music in general. That you've been into because you're into quite a bit of music that's a little bit of
oh.
throw. I mean, you said 70s, 80s, and 90s. I
Hmm.
mean, that's a huge. There's so much music that came out during these times, and a lot of the beginning of some of the most influential people as far as music goes. It was like we had a hiatus during the 60s. I know everyone's going to say that, but I'm not a huge 60s fan. But, some of the music was good. But then you get into the 70s, 80s, and the 90s, and it's just like this huge explosion of just different types of genres. You have more subcultures that were kind of like repressed as far as mainstream music goes, and they all just kind of developed and came out, whether that was through electronica or getting into hip hop or different types of jazz and rock, like poppy. You know,
Yeah,
it's a whole nother world. You know, but it
exactly.
makes a tremendous difference when you're playing games though, and the soundtracks are outstanding. Um,
Honestly, though, I mean, for me, what you mentioned there was actually the trailer that I meant put on Twitter. So obviously the video won't come out until, this Sunday, obviously recording this video. But, you know, again, the video kind of gives an indication of what's to come. But for me, the most important aspect about any media that I play or any medium that I listen to, the soundtrack has to be outstanding. In that said same video, I showed four albums that I liked. Obviously, it doesn't even tip the iceberg
right.
on what I like. That was just four examples. But the one where I mentioned Bjork and Kate Bush,
Yes.
those two artists are some of my favorites because the album in particular from Bjork, that's my favorite album. Just from start to finish, it's an enchanting experience, and no song is boring. You're always on your toes. Every song is worth listening to, and it's just a breathtaking experience. Whereas Kate Bush, she's a bit weird, but she has very engrossing songs that keep you in the mindset of what she's probably thinking and doing at the
Right.
time.
I think with
But
Bjork, especially, because I love Bjork also.
I love York. Yes.
She's just an artist, like through and through, and things that she does. Every music video I've seen of hers and performances that she's done live, and when she did the performance in Dancer in the Dark, the one
Mm,
she was nominated, I think, for an Oscar, um,
yeah.
it was outstanding. Like she said, she'll never act again because it really, really,
Shame.
it got into her head. But she has that ideal artistic brain who's always thinking 50 steps ahead. And with her music, it's not it's not for everybody. I understand that, but I do appreciate and I love a lot of her music because Post was when I was introduced to her, and then I went
Oh
back.
yeah. Post.
Yeah,
Great album.
and I did get the album you were showing. I can't remember what it's called.
Hem-
Homogenic or I
Hemo. Well, we call it hemogenic, but
okay.
I've got debut, post, hemogenic. I forgot the one after that, but I think it's Vespertime, but something. I've actually got the albums right there in my. I've got most of her albums in my collection,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. But this is the phrase I've always said about these artists, the ones who put music first. They're the kind of artists who don't satisfy a company's balance or tick sheet. They're the ones who obviously are real musical enthusiasts. They're the ones who think music first and
Mm-hmm.
mainstream later. They don't think, oh, I have to make music for the mainstream so that I can be famous for the pop industry. No, no, no. It's all about making music that she can identify with and can be
Right.
proud of, and the ones who actually take the time to listen and appreciate the beauty that she brings to the table, they're the ones who'll benefit. I mean, look, the thing is, as you said, music is different for everybody and everyone has a different taste. But
Right.
when you can listen and hear a musical masterpiece, you just know, even if you don't like it,
Right.
like classical music, most of the classical music are musical masterpieces, which is
Right.
true.
Yeah. And I think when it comes down to it, when someone is creating art, whatever that is, music is one of the big ones, but obviously you have regular, mixed media painting, whatever it is. And then you have acting and all these different genres of type of art now, especially with the way the internet has blown up. There's even more forms of artwork and performance art and things like that we're able to see that otherwise we wouldn't have seen because now there's platforms for that. But I really do appreciate the work that, for example, I am a fan of EDM. Not this current stuff, but more of the trance and classical music that was developed
Yes.
into trance. And there's a beauty to it. And when you realize, like, very big Paul Van Dyke fan, I love,
Oh, Paul Van Dyke. Paul
yeah,
Van Dyke. Yes.
I saw him live and I was so excited because I had never thought I would ever get to see Paul live. But like Armin and all these other guys who've been through, the transition of trance, like being techno to more of a trance and the development into vocal trance and still going back to the roots of it. It's it's all an artistry, and to watch them, let's say, quote DJ, and some people are like, oh, DJing isn't crap. I'm like, you don't understand. Like when I was very young, house music was huge. It still is for
Oh
me,
yeah,
and I love it.
I love house music.
And yeah.
One of my favorite songs is Barbara Tucker, "Beautiful People," and there's like a mix of that. I forgot
Mm-hmm.
what the
Yeah.
mix was called, but it's one that connects it up to 9 minutes, and it's one of the best dance songs of all time. And it's wonderful.
And there's a beauty to electronica because of the artistry that's included, because there is talent behind that. There are people playing instruments. You just have one person doing this. And it's more than just mixing and, like at a club, like how house music is, where it used to just be DJs live. When I was young, you could listen to them at night on the radio at a club, all night for, like, let's say 5 to 8 hours, and sometimes 14 hours of
Oh
just
yes,
live mixing. And it's continuous. There are no breaks. And the songs just keep going, and there's new, songs being introduced, but they're mixing in their own tracks. They're you have to be ahead of yourself in the brain as an artist. That's kind of what you are. You have an idea or a picture that you're trying to fulfill. And I think with music especially, it's done that. Like, one of the best game as far as game soundtracks, what made me fall in love, and that's, I agree with you. If the soundtrack is there, it makes the game even more of an experience, number one, but two, a much loved game. And for me, it was Myst and Riven.
oh
Those,
yeah, Mr. Riven. Yep,
I mean, that
Mr. Riven.
blew my mind. I was like, what is this crap? Because the first time I played it, I was paranoid. I'm like, I'm gonna die. Like, because
Yeah.
it had that feeling. I'm like, well, I'm looking down this road and there's nobody there, but things are moving. I'm like, I don't know. But Riven was outstanding. I've told my Squirrel, my spouse, we were having this conversation about Riven. I'm like, I showed him gameplay of Riven, and I said, to me, this was such a big change of interaction in gaming. And, this is like, what, I forgot what year it is. That's how terrible it was. But I want to say
Must have
early,
been mid 90s.
yeah, it was excuse me, Riven came out early I want to say 99, 2000, somewhere in there. And it was one of those games that blew my mind, and it had so much interaction. The soundtrack is really what did it for me, though. I was like, because I bought the soundtrack, I'm like, this is staying, forever.
Yeah, exactly.
But back then, what they would do, which I kind of still, I mean, they still do this. It's just not as common, but they will sell these soundtracks with the games. So you'll have like these dual discs, and one will just be the music, and the music was outstanding for Riven and Myst, because it was very, environmental, and you had this feeling that you were, in a very immersive environment. But the music was beautiful. There was a lot of like kind of spooky lullaby type stuff, but at the same time, it reminded you immediately of that place, of that time, as if it made its own section in time in your brain. So as opposed to like, oh, you hear a soundtrack and you're like, that reminds me of this other game or this other system I was playing this game on, whatever. It has its own tune, it has its own rhythm, and it's one of those. I still recommend that soundtrack because it's very unique and it's very different. For the Squirrel, he loves Silent Hill. That's his
Silent
favorite.
Hill, the fantastic game.
Yeah, he loves. I mean, he's disappointed by a lot of decisions they've made recently, with the
Oh
franchise.
yeah. Oh
Um,
yes. Oh
oh my
goodness.
God.
That by itself is an essay. But for me, with Silent Hill, I mean, I've completed the first game, one of the most eerie soundtracks of all time. I've got
Yeah.
two and three, but in this new video, I do talk about Silent Hill. Which one? You have to find out when you watch.
Yeah, it's Silent Hill is. I couldn't make it like that game. I don't like jump scares. I don't like too much gore. I'm not one. He loves the
But Gore
horror.
is awesome.
I know. I know. I'm one of those
It's
people.
excellent.
I'm yelling when I play these games. I start getting angry. I'm like, something's coming for me. I don't like your attitude, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna make it. I'll blow this whole building up. There won't be anything left. Like, I don't even care anymore. But there were so many like disturbing scenes out of the game, and I was like, okay, this is. And he goes and he plays these games in the dark, and he will. And like I remember went out of town. I can't remember which one he had. I got it for him for his birthday or something, and we went out of town. I had the young squirrels with me, and he was by himself playing this game for like 48 hours I think he just stayed
Wow.
in the
Wow.
dark and beat the game within like 2 days. And he was just like, that was the best experience. I don't remember which one it was. I was just like, I want no part of it. I told him, if you're gonna play your game, I'm gonna go do my happy stuff, like where there's no like pyramid head guy, with nurses. I don't need this kind of therapy issue. But it's an
That's
outstanding game
fantastic.
as far as soundtrack and graphics, and definitely the stories are well done. I mean, obviously, as time went on, they kind of started burning their own building down, and the
Oh
movies
yeah.
did not help. The movie,
No.
it did no justice, and a lot of pissed off fans. But regardless, though, I do agree about the movie soundtracks and not movie. I'm sorry, game soundtracks, movie too, of course. But game soundtracks it's a very unique genre of gaming has a whole different aspect to it where it is more you're having more of an original base of music. Films kind of scurry around pulling pop tracks and things like that from or their compilations. I think gaming has its own genre of creation and composure. I think these composers that come in and make these soundtracks, that's not an easy thing to do. I know that's not easy with anything, but I think with gaming, it's definitely, if you screw that up, you can screw up the entire game.
Exactly. And it's so interesting because a lot of people view video game soundtracks as not legit, especially compared to the mainstream market. But these days the mainstream music industry is absolutely terrible. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but a lot of music in the mainstream industry, in my opinion, comes across as satisfying a company tick sheet.
Yeah,
Another account or another bit of money for the company's account sheet. It just there's no passion, no soul, no effort. It's just low key average music that only sells because the artist attached to it might be big in our
right.
view. But other than that, the actual music, in my opinion, for the most part, is god awful. It's just I can't believe that people think that music that's so bland and personality free is good. I just think, what the is this? It just why would somebody listen to this and go, that's good? That is, yeah, I definitely want that in my personal collection. Just this is god awful. I'd rather listen to a moose than this.
And I agree. I think that there is a sense that I have with, what do you call it? When you start to dumb down the population a little bit, to just kind of take like in, let's say, constant popcorn flicks, for example, it's junk food, right? And a lot of games can have a lot of junk food in it, as opposed to something of quality that has a lot of purpose put into it. Like one of the games I do want to play is Death Standing. I know that not everybody's pleased by that game. I have no idea. I'm going in pretty much going, I've been excited to play this. And because I like stories, I like the development of characters and things like that. And even if those storylines are a little off the wall, that's okay as long as it's an experience. Because to me, that's the point of playing a game, not just to win, but to have an experience. Whether that you walk away going, I don't know what the hell that was, or not.
Mhm.
I think that there's been a lot of that popcorn mentality where they just don't put a lot of effort into their soundtracks or to the quality of the game or the development of the game. And if you can focus better on the quality and what getting into someone's head a little bit without getting too like I don't know memento-ish, if you will, where it's a little creepy.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that's a good thing. I think that there should be obviously the entertainment value of it, but it should ultimately be about an experience of telling a story. And the storytelling is part of that popcorn crap where we have less and less storytelling going on in games as we used to have. You know what I mean? There was a lot more pride put into video games. I would argue that we still have that. It's just I feel like they're at war with themselves.
I mean, to me, my opinion on the gaming industry today is obviously there are still fantastic games that come out. Resident Evil 2 Remake, my favorite game of the year from last year.
Hmm.
Ace Combat 7, another favorite of mine, has a beautiful soundtrack, by the way. Obviously, Soul Calibur 6, great game. Obviously, there's a lot of PS4 exclusive games that were great. Spider-Man, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, and we know the obvious ones.
Right.
But but then there's companies like Activision, EA, Bethesda, those kind of companies, the ones who only look at a game as an opportunity to make money, not to
Yeah.
make a good game. Maybe in the past they made good games. You know, Need for Speed used to be good. Elder Scrolls used to be good. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
for Activision, they used to make the Spider-Man games. You know, the ones on PlayStation, they were fantastic. You know, Tony Hawk's fantastic game. So all these companies used to make fantastic games, and they are capable of doing so. You know, EA recently made Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. You know, I mean, okay, they didn't make it. That was was it Respawn? Respawn made that, didn't they?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but EA published it, and normally when you see EA on anything today, you think, oh, you know, this is going to be awful, but they can do it. They can make great games. They just want all they want is the money, and when they only want money, the game suffers. It's full of microtransactions. It's full of loot boxes. It's full of pointless DLC. It's full of pointless special editions. It's full of game-breaking design choices that make you feel like you're grinding, and it's, you know, it's horrid, and you get nowhere. And modern video games, for the most part, have too many tropes where instead of increasing or letting the game player experience the game the way it was intended to, these companies stifle creativity, they stifle progression, they stifle the experience and cut
Mm-hmm.
it in a way where, unless you pay up or you're the most patient person in the world, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
And these companies leech on us for that. And that's why whenever, you know, in the past, I used to be excited for games. I was like, oh yes, you know, new Need for Speed, new this, new, can't wait, can't wait. But then this year or recently, I'm like, has that game got microtransactions in it? Has it got loot boxes in it? Is it unfair? Has it got pay to win mechanics? Has it got mechanics where if you want to skip a grinding, you know, or you have to level up and it takes like 2 million years, you can pay to go past that? You know, every new game, I have to think that. And it really annoys me because that stops me wanting to get games day one anymore. And it also makes me think, oh, you know, if every game's going to be like this, then why the hell should I get excited for it? All I'm thinking is, oh, yay, another game that's going to be derivative. Great. Has it got microtransactions in it? You know, just
Right.
it's
It's
it's not the way I want to think.
Well, it takes away the purpose of what a game is, and I think what sucks is like a lot of these. This is why I've stepped away from a lot of the MMORPGs, is because the direction of quite a few of them has been this, where you're like, oh well, you can pay to level up a character instantly to 50, or
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
it is. It takes away the fun of it, and you're like, listen, it's nice to know when you're all together that every one of you has earned where you're at, not just something where you insert coin and receive. That's terrible. That takes away the whole fun of it, because then you have a ton of people who are level 50 who are idiots running off cliffs and killing everyone. It makes the new level 1 be a 50. And it's not an earned thing, and I don't believe that, in a sense, money should not be, it's a bad message. It really is a bad message that, oh well, if you put this money into it, then you succeed. It's the only way
Well,
you're gonna get here. I mean, you could do it through hard work and sweat, but you could instantly get it through gratification of $10.
it, but it just shows you how companies leech off you. You know, they make something difficult or impossible, so they force or goad you into spending money. And then worse than that, obviously, companies are starting to take away what would have been in a game, say 10 years ago. They cut it out and go, "Oh, you want it back in? Okay, pay up." And you just think, why? Why would you take away something that was free all these years ago and suddenly charge me money to have it back? No thanks. I'd
Right.
rather have an actual game. You know, give me the real game. Stop taking things away and making me feel like I've been ripped off, because that's what it's starting to come across as that now,
Oh yeah.
especially from these greedy companies.
Oh, I agree. Like that whole loot box thing that was going on, especially with EA and all these other companies, they were doing this kind of shit where, they were pushing these boxes. Oh, this will help level you up. You can get, it's one thing if you want to like get like cosmetic items, but some of these items, for example, that they were selling, I think it was in a couple MMORPGs like Warcraft and a couple other ones on Xbox, where they actually had stats on some of the stuff that they were selling. And I'm like, okay, this is beyond cosmetic, because this is actually giving the players advantages over other players because they were willing to spend this money. That's a bad message. And you might get some of that, but in the end, there's no glory to go with it. So it's a short, in my opinion, a short term win of cash for a long-term failure, because eventually these people just go, well, if I can just buy these specialty items and win that way, then what's the point of playing this game? There's not really an advantage there. There's not much of the full experience or feeling of success that people want to acquire from playing games. So
it's not just that as well, but what's going on with that is what they're basically saying is, if you want to have the full experience in the game today, the £60 dollars base price, as I now call it, isn't enough anymore.
right.
And also, what it's basically saying to you as a player is you are incapable of playing our game the way that you want to. So play it our way, and obviously you have to just deal with it. It's not teaching you to persevere. It's not teaching you to take on a challenge and beat it. All it's teaching you is, if I have a bit of money, if I get into a spot where it's too difficult, or if I can't be bothered to play the game to earn that level up, I
Right.
can just pay for it.
Right.
And that's just, not only does that give companies who are greedy the opportunity to leech off you, but then your skills aren't going up because you didn't legitimately do the challenge.
Correct.
You bought it, and then a player who did it legitimately will always be better than you, but then they suffered. So the question is, who wins? The person who was grinding for a million years and probably hated it, or the person who bought their way into that level up but had no satisfaction doing so? No one wins.
No, I agree. Nobody wins in that
So
situation. These companies, this is why, so many of them, like EA, Activision, they're all paying prices for these short-term visions of making money, but don't realize that it's not going to apply or help them in the long run. So they're actually kind of slowly been sealing their fate as time has gone on with this. Even though they've taken away some stuff because, it's gambling, that was the context of it. It's still an issue, and you still have it going on.
And speaking of gambling, loot boxes, that's the other thing as well I forgot to mention. With a loot box, if you decide to buy one, there's no guarantee you'll get the item you want. You may get a random item that you've already got, one that you don't want, one that doesn't belong on your character. So, yeah, essentially loot boxes, even though the definition at the moment is not, it is gambling. So, of course, with gambling, there's so many laws behind it. You can't, obviously minors can't gamble. Then you need permits, you need laws, you need all sorts of things before you can even consider gambling. And that's what they did in Belgium. They made it so you had to get licenses, and that's why EA was like, no, I can't be bothered to get all these licenses to get our loot boxes to be, satisfied in the game. So screw it. But obviously gaming is going down a very deep, dark hole. And aside from a few good companies like Capcom at the moment, most of them are going to be trying to leech off players. But luckily, the gaming community is speaking against such vile company policies. And although not all of them will go away, unfortunately, most of them are either being trimmed down to where it's more accessible, or at least not so bad,
Right.
or like loot boxes, they're starting to go away completely, which is what I was hoping for in the first place.
I agree.
But
I think
we'll have to see.
It's just it's just a bad message. It really is. And the loot box thing, because I always thought I've never purchased those,
No.
mystery loot box type crap, because I thought, well, first off, it's an electronic, my brain, I'm thinking they already know what your character has and what it doesn't. And so even with this loot box that's supposedly, quote, random, how random is it? How long, if they know that you're willing to spend money, right?
And how dictated is it from the company, because they can flip a switch. So honestly, this is why I love my retro consoles, because get the disc, put it in the console, no microtransactions, no bullying me about to go into the storefront to buy some pointless crap that I don't want, nothing like that.
Right.
Just pure gaming goodness with companies at the time who actually put in effort into a game, not just half-baked it. Oh, that's the other thing as well. How many companies release a game that's unfinished, like say Anthem?
Right. Oh,
that's been a common thing. But notice how the games can be unfinished and broken at launch, but the microtransactions and the storefront works fine.
Yep. And that's the
Have you-
that's the thing that started really ticking me off because I bought so many PC games as an example, bring them home, and I remember when they would be a complete game. There wouldn't
Yeah,
be a
absolutely.
need to do I mean, the expansions and stuff are always fun, but it wasn't necessary to play the game itself. I mean, unless
Yeah,
you
it was
just
a nice,
wanted.
it was a nice bonus.
Right, exactly.
That's what it was.
And
Yeah,
that's that feeling. And I got fed up and I stopped buying the games because I was like, this isn't a complete game. They're just, it's kind of like what Warcraft has done, with that exploitation of constantly being like, oh, well, if you want to get to this level, you have to buy another expansion that's another 50, to $60. Um,
ridiculous.
and or you want to unlock a certain race. It's just ridiculous. I'm like, well, yeah, I'd like to play that race, but I'm not spending another $60 just for that one thing. Screw it.
And this is why for me as well. This is why whenever I get or see a new game that
Oop, you there?
hello.
There you go. Sorry, you got a little
Oh,
discode. It's okay though.
oh, thank goodness. But basically, with every game now, any game that I'm interested in, I always wait for reviews to come out so I can know if it's good, bad, if there's microtransactions, how intrusive are they into the game experience, and so
Mm-hmm.
on. I never ever buy a game day one anymore because if I buy a game day one, £60 or whatever the price is, and it's broken or something, then I would just be pissed right off because you don't take my money, a lot of money by the way, and
Mm-hmm.
then expect me to slough through a game. I mean, I'm not expecting a flawless game. I expect problems here and there. No
Right.
no game is but if it's clearly unfinished and it's
Yeah.
clearly been pushed out the door and you can see it,
Yep.
I'm not interested.
Well, I agree because that's why I don't buy games anymore when they come out. I remember I used to do that back in the day, but I don't haven't done it now in years because I want to wait till all the kinks and bugs have been addressed. It's just like with the systems for a while with the consoles that was an issue. Xbox being one of the big ones, and
Mm.
I remember at one point I was going to buy one for it was for me primarily, but also for the eldest squirrel, and decided not to because I was hearing about the Red Ring of Death. And I was like, how long is this going to go on? And for a while, they were denying it was a problem. They were like, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. The system was a mess. And so they
Oh no.
finally
Oh,
decided, I don't know how many years of shit this went on for, but it went on for years of them denying it and then finally saying, okay, we'll fix it, but not this way. And they were still, in my opinion, taking money from consumers in a negative, like stealing money um, for a game system they knew was flawed from the beginning. So I mean, PlayStation was still, wreaking havoc, and Xbox was just puddling along. And that's the only reason, in my opinion, aside from numerous other reasons with Xbox, which I'm not a fan of, they lost money because they lied to their consumers by not taking responsibility for the console's quality and stability, and then tried to blame the consumers. I'm like, man, you could have taken some, like, I don't know, suggestions from Nintendo looking back at the Game Boy. They understood that this was a known flaw. They took accountability for it and they started replacing out items and getting those things maintenance and doing what they need to do. And it saved them a lot of long term grief. So Xbox had a reputation for a while there of just being assholes.
well, you know what they say: a new player breeds new personalities, and Xbox was trying to be a little too clever. I mean, fair play to Microsoft; they've done well enough. I mean, not maybe not this generation so much, but back when the PlayStation 3 was a thing, they did
Mm-hmm.
really well to beat it and keep up for to the end. So,
Yes. Yep.
and of course, now we've got the PS5 coming out. We've got the Xbox Series. Can I just say, Xbox names are really ever since the Xbox One, the naming schemes are just ridiculous. Anyway,
Yeah.
Xbox Series X coming out, and then some Xbox. I don't know. There's another one that's like
uh,
um, PS5,
okay.
and it's going to be a very interesting, generation because they're touting all these massive improvements to the consoles and more power and this and that, and some games have been shown off that look incredible for a console. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll be interesting to see what happens next. But for me at the moment, I'm torn. I really want a PS4 Pro because there's lots of great PS4 games coming out and are out.
Mm-hmm.
But then I want a PS5 because I know I can buy the next gen console, I mean games, and I can hopefully play the PS4 games I would have bought for the Pro. But
Right.
then I'm thinking, but what's the cost of the new console? And should I just get more PC parts because I do need to upgrade the PC? Basically, I've got a lot of things that I want, but I can't get them all because I'm poor.
Yep, I join you in the struggle because for me it's like I'm all about my PCs and like upgrading and doing all that stuff. There's certain games that like I wanted, I upgraded the computer enough so I could try to play them, and I was like, oh, okay, this, whatever, at least my computer's upgraded, let's say that. um but there hasn't been, I mean, for us, we have a household with younger children, so as far as family friendliness goes, it'll probably be a Nintendo system, meaning for now. And that, because that's mostly what the kids want. They want their um Zelda and Call of the Wild type stuff, or sorry, Breath of the Wild, excuse me. And that's fine. I'm totally cool with all that because I'm a big fan of all those systems. Like I like a lot of those games, but the PlayStation is the other one, and the eldest Squirrel is an Xbox fan. So we have everybody from every genre in this household. But that'll be, as far as for the kids, that'll be their system. That's going to, I'm probably not going to do I guess the mini Switch, whatever the hell it is. Not interested. I'll probably just get the traditional Switch, because there's not really enough there for the cost difference, in
if
my
I
mind.
if For me, I love the Nintendo Switch and I desperately want one as well. But what's holding me back is the fact of that I really want a PS4 or 5,
Right.
and but if Nintendo actually have a PS4, sorry, a Nintendo Switch PS4 Pro from Nintendo, yeah. Anyway, so if Nintendo actually announce a Nintendo Switch Pro and the specs are pretty, they're like they're on par with PS4 Pro or Xbox One X or whatever, I'll be jumping ship. I'll be like, boom, give
Yeah.
me Nintendo Switch Pro, bang, I want it, I want it.
Right. I mean, as far as the specs I've seen on it, there's nothing like, it's not like the most amazing specs ever. I mean, if there's some little surprise that oh, hey, guess what? It's this. I would consider that, over the traditional Switch, they came out with.
I still love the console though, the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why I'm not buying one is because you have to get the console, the peripherals, the controllers, the
Right.
charging ports, the backing ports. The games are still ridiculously expensive, or most of them are anyway.
Yeah.
So with PS4,
Yeah.
PS4 Pro, £220, and a lot of the games are like £20, £15. Really good games, by the way.
Right.
So, or you can get the PS Plus thing for like a year and have, access to a lot of great games on the PS4 store. So what I'm saying is to get into the PS4 ecosystem, and I guess Xbox as well, because they've got the fantastic Xbox Games Pass, which I do have on PC, by the way. But fantastic thing. Xbox deserve praise for that. The Xbox Games Pass is wonderful, and on PC as well, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I agree
but
with
if I
that.
wanted a new console, just to build up games now, I'd get PS4 or Xbox. PS4 personally for me, and I would get the 12 months subscription for PS Plus or whichever one that gives you all the games. The only reason why I don't want a base PS4 is not because it's not a bad console. I'd still get it. It's just I want to capture things at 1440p or above. So 1440, and I want to get the Elgato 4K 60 Pro soon into my PC, and
Oh.
that'll let me have either higher bitrate for consoles that don't support 4K, so 1080p for example, and the ones that do support that resolution, so 4K, 1440, whatever, I can do it from the console and it'd be really good. So I'm just thinking, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Oh, I don't know what to do. It's really frustrating.
Yeah. There's so many things, like, because we've gone back and forth in the house a lot about, okay, well, what system? And we finally voted on the Switch, and primarily because of, but because of the price. I didn't want to do the Xbox because I was like, I don't really care about Xbox whatsoever. I do like their platforming as far as like, being able to access certain things. I don't like a lot of there's a greediness that still is connected, in my opinion, to Xbox that I don't care for. when it comes to game sharing and things like that with certain games on PC, for example. But it just depends on what game and all this other stuff. But it's one of those things where, you have to, for me, it's screening the games properly to the age and things like that, because the young ones here, it's like we have to keep it simple. Yeah, you know what I mean? They're a little younger, and they're not up to par. Like, especially as far as mentally, they can't be out playing shooters. I wouldn't allow that.
Yeah.
They just don't comprehend that, and it's a lot of violence. And I've always been like that with the eldest Squirrel. I was like that for a long time, and then he got into World War II stuff, and it was over. So, it is what it is, and that's fine. But there's different, we had to look at the console prices, also the game's long-term investment of it, and the
Absolutely.
reliability. And I don't feel secure with Xbox still. I just don't. Their systems piss me off on a regular basis. Having to either have them repaired or have them looked at, or having issues with their memory, which is a big problem, like with downloading games and stuff like that. I've helped Elder Squirrel clean out stuff and move things around, getting an external hard drive and all this other nonsense, just to have certain games that either they purchased or whatever. And that's my only complaint with them, is that they should have more. I know they want to, the cost is about cost efficiency, but a lot of this has to do with taking a risk for the consumer to make more money in the long run, as opposed to making people struggle like they have been with most of these systems. I mean, 360 was their godsend, saving their ass as far as consoles
Oh
go,
yeah.
because the first Xbox was trash. So
Yeah.
it was absolute trash. I was like, who made this? It was like Bill Gates' doorstop, and he was like, why don't we use that? That's pretty much what the original Xbox was. Too many problems with the system, a lot of incompatibilities, a lot of instability in the game, and also the quality of the game. Even though you had really good graphics, it just didn't carry the game well. There was a lot of problems with it. Anyway, yeah.
It's so funny actually, on that topic, because you know I went to CX recently. It's basically it's like a retro store kind of place, and they sometimes have consoles in there. I saw two consoles. So I saw the original Mega Drive, which I desperately wanted.
Hmm.
I've got the Mega Drive 2. I don't like it very much. I like the Mega Drive itself and the games. I just don't like that console. I wanted the original, the big box with the headphone jack on it. And it's like, oh, I want it so bad.
Yeah.
I want that one. But the second console was the Xbox, the original Xbox, and it was 35 quid. And I thought, if I liked the Xbox, I'd get that. But I don't care for it.
Right.
I just don't care. It's not a bad system, obviously. I just don't care for Xbox. I just never have.
Yeah.
I look at Xbox and think, yeah, it's a good console, and I can see the appeal of Xbox, but I prefer PlayStation and Nintendo for that matter. And
My opinion about the Xbox has always been like, oh, look at this computer company, coming in, trying to get into that, genre of, transitioning from PC to a console. And they're still, in a sense, yeah, they've done better, much better than they had, but they're still behind. Like, that's the way it feels, like, to me, like, in comparison to PlayStation or Nintendo, they're still
and
behind.
the thing is, I'm still rocking the PlayStation 2, and I'm still discovering new games I haven't played before. And obviously, I've now got the hardware to output 1080p, onto the capture card and into my computer. Then I upscale it to 4K. So for me, there's something more satisfying getting an analog system into the HD world to look pretty decent, and it's just more fun, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
I still want a new PlayStation, whether it be the PS4 or 5, I don't know, but I definitely want to upgrade the PC capture card so that when I do finally, I just want to upgrade everything,
Yeah.
being frank with you. I just want to upgrade the PC, I want to upgrade the capture card, I want to upgrade not upgrade, I want a new system.
Well,
It's
there's
nice to play. Yeah,
nothing
it's
wrong
nice.
with that, because that's
No,
something that it'll be utilized across the board, no matter what console you decide to get.
yeah.
Probably affordability. Yeah, obviously you're going to pay a little bit more for certain things, but it's so much cheaper now to do
And
upgrades. So,
Yeah, and not just that as well, but it'd be obviously for the viewers at home. I'm sure a lot of them will want to hear my thoughts on certain PS4 or newer games, and obviously, on my upcoming video again, there are a couple of new games that came out only last year or 2018 for the first time that I talk about. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just interesting to me to see what kind of thoughts I have on a modern game in comparison to the retro games that I either grew up with or have more appreciation for.
Right. And it's true. There's a lot of stuff. There were so many games that came out for the PS2 and 3. It's one of these things where like I feel like 3 just came out and 4. You know what I mean? Like these systems still feel because PS2 really hung in there for so long. It was such a well-established system. It lasted. You know what I mean? As far as its legacy, and
Oh,
it's amazing. So it's like when 3 and 4, all these systems are announced. I was like, really? Like, I had, at the time when these were announced, I was like, oh, okay, well, let's see where it's gone. And I didn't hear much. I didn't hear anything negative, but I didn't hear anything like, wow, it blew the two out of the water. There was none of that conversation.
well, I mean, PS2 is still the highest selling console of all time.
Right.
So, I mean, the PS4's just recently beat 100 million. So it's the third PlayStation console to do so. The PS1 did it, PS2 did it, PS4's done it, PS3 didn't quite do it, PSP didn't quite do it, but
Yeah.
Sony are definitely, you know, without doubt, in the 21st century, Sony is one of the most successful video game companies in history. No question about it.
Yeah. I agree with
They've
that.
had they've had success after success after success after success. The only three consoles that weren't great were the PSP Go,
Yeah.
the PS Vita, even though that was a great console, and the PS TV. Oh, and you can also add the PlayStation Classic. That was a disaster. I couldn't believe Sony made that bad. That shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have been bad. That should have been smash hit, easy money, easy success. Most successful mini system. No,
It was
they screwed
sad. The PSP thing was like a sad loss, I think. The potential there was so
the
high.
Vita. Yeah,
And,
yeah, because
oh,
yeah the
God.
PSP original did well. That sold 80 million units, but the Vita, oh, that should that console deserved more love than it got. It was a great system that Sony just went nope, throw it in the water.
Like the PSP was a great little system, but there was a lot of, I would say, mechanical flaws with its usability. Like I know we had a PSP, and there,
Love the PSP, by the way. We
yeah,
had one. Love
yeah,
it, love it,
I
love it.
liked it a lot. But my only complaint is that they're like, for example, where you would flip the back off to put the game in. Over time, that started to have problems. So it would get
Yeah,
stuck, locked, and sometimes break off, depending on, because we actually had it repaired. But it was a known system flaw, with the way it was done. I was like, well, then fix it. But instead, they charged you for, to get it fixed because they're like, oh, well, you just mishandled it. Well, come to find out there was a problem with that little back door, when you're flipping it open to insert the disc. There was, it was disconnecting from the opening at the bottom would pop
mm,
off, and there was all these other problems with it not it's hard to explain all this crap, but it was just like, well, that sucks because it's not very durable in that context. You know what I mean? Especially for, if you're giving it to a child, right? Or a young
yeah.
adult, or if you're using it a lot and you're traveling. That's when I was reading about with people having issues. They travel a lot. They would take the little system with them, even in the packet, but because of the wear and tear of just travel or having it around children just in general, and yeah, the kids can be a little like rowdy, but the system couldn't take a licking as well as other systems. And that,
You see, for me,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, for me, with the PSP, despite the issues, I know no system is perfect, but
Hmm.
for me, I am so tempted to get a PSP system, so another one. So my first, because the PSP we had was my brother's, so I used to borrow it.
Right.
So I wanted to buy my own PSP, and I found out you can buy component cables that you can put it through to the television. I never knew that until recently.
Oh.
So if I get a PSP, I'm going to get the component cables, so I can obviously put it through my not capture card, through my upscaler into the capture card, so I can actually capture real PSP footage. And obviously, the PSP could play PS1 games. So if I can still buy them on PSP, I could obviously play some PS1 games through that. But obviously, no matter what the case may be, I can play PSP games on the TV through that, and it'd be amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and I miss the PSP so much. You know, I remember Pursuit Force, Soul Calibur was on there. There was this weird Loco Roco game, you know, where you were like this blob to music. I remember oh, what else was on there? That was oh yeah, Need for Speed. Which one was it? Was it Carbon? And Most Wanted one there. They were great games. There was also Tekken 6. That was a
Yes.
fantastic port on the
Yep.
PSP.
You got God of War on there too.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid. No, yeah, Metal Gear Solid Pace Walker. That was a fantastic game. Yeah, God of War was on there as well. What else was on? Ace Combat was on there. That was a great game on there. I thought. Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai was on there. We had that great game. Great game. It was a nice little port of the Budokai 3 game that I've got on PS2. But the PSP was just a fantastic system.
Yeah.
Easily one of my favorite systems of all time.
It really
Love
was.
that thing.
Well, it was a great attempt. I think for them, especially at the time, that's why we got it. It lasted. I think we had one of the Star Wars editions that they did.
Yeah, there was a couple of Star Wars games. I think Battlefront 2 was one.
Yes.
Yeah, we had that. Decent, not the best port, but for what it was pretty decent.
Yeah.
And for me, what I loved about it was just the power, just the fact you had a slightly weaker PS2. Oh yeah, that was the other games. Wipeout Pure, Wipeout Whole. Oh my god, those games were superb on PSP. Great soundtracks, look good. But yeah, I loved the power. Just you had a mini PS2 in your pocket that
Yeah.
could play PS1 games. I thought, oh my god, this is heaven. And
Oh yeah, very well done. In the end,
and
it was a great idea. It was a good attempt. The Vita was sad. That was a sad one. I didn't even bother.
that was sad.
I didn't
Yeah,
do
the
it.
PSP, the Vita was sad. I never bought that one, but I knew it was good. But the PSP original is my favorite from those.
Yeah.
I love. I tell you what. One day, when I finally get enough money, I will get a PSP, component cables, lots of games for it, and I'll be like, "Look at this! I can play PSP video games on my on my Acro system and put them
Right.
through the capture card." You know, you see, just the memories are real with the PSP, and I know exactly what games to get. You know, so
Right.
it's going to be. I think what I'm going to do then for sure is I'm going to go to CX, find a PSP, see how much one is, and find. I've looked on the component cables; they're quite cheap, like £10-15, so not bad at all. And start getting a PSP collect. Oh, that was the other game I forgot. Burnout Legends was on PSP. That was
Oh.
superb.
Yeah.
Superb game. Loved that game. It was basically Burnout 3 in your pocket. It was wonderful.
Man,
Wonderful
the
game.
days. Anything with portable systems was just like an exciting. Like that was such a huge jump. I was like, this is great because
Yeah.
I remember when I was growing up, like a lot of people I knew had like the regular NES, and also Sega.
NES.
Yeah, and like Segas and shit.
Uh,
Like I couldn't afford
yeah.
that, and so eventually, I got a Game Boy, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And then I got the Super NES, and that was a game changer.
I love
And
the Super NES now.
oh man, I'm like, wow.
I just need more games. There's quite a few I saw in CX that were like less than £10, and they were quite good games actually. So
Yeah,
I may need to also invest because I actually want to talk about the Super Nintendo, but I need to get an S cable or I need to somehow get a component cable for it, which you can do. There are component cables for it. They're just bloody expensive, like 40 quid.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
but I do want to talk about Super Nintendo. It's great.
Absolutely. I'm going to start wrapping up our chat, but
Yeah.
usually what I do at the end of the chat, outside of, at the end here, we're going to plug your channel again and any upcoming videos you have that will be dropping. But at the end of each one of these segments, as suggested by Stig Kenobi, there's a show called Inside the Actor's Studio. And at the end of the show, there's the Pivot questionnaire by Bernard Pivot. And James Lipton, who's the host, always asks their guest, who could be a producer, a director, an actor, actress, these 10 questions. And it gives the audience a little bit of like insight into who you are. So it's about 10 different questions, and if you're ready, we'll go for it.
Let's do it.
All right. So first one, what is your favorite word?
Sod. You like sod?
Like the perfect, like, it's a versatile word. You can use it for all kinds of things.
My other favorite word is fuzz, as you probably heard already. You
Hmm.
know, you fuzz, fuzz you little fuzzer. It's just so sod and fuzz, but more sod than anything else.
Okay, what is your least favorite word?
Oh, lit. I hate that word so
Oh
much.
yeah, it's overused. It's like, oh god, sounds like somebody trying to be at a
It just
at the cool kids table. Hey guys, that's
no,
lit.
no, no, no. It sounds like somebody who thinks they're cool, but they're really not. But
Exactly.
no, that word gets used a lot, and I just think, why can't you say it looks good or it's beautiful or fantastic? Why do you have to use the word lit? That could mean it's on fire. I don't know. What if it's like,
Okay,
you know,
it's true.
just I hate that word so much.
It's a
Just
very
it's,
overused, superficial word. I don't know.
it just sounds like the kind of word you'd hear. You know, when you watch somebody, when you watch those rich people on TV shows
Oh yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
those kind of people, and I just think I don't care that you're rich. If you're rich, fair enough, not a problem. You know, if you deserve to be rich or you are rich, fine, whatever. But don't come across to me and say I'm rich, I'm lit. I think shut up.
Oh god, that's annoying. Okay, next question is what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
When you said that, I thought, where's this going? I'm
I know. And disclaimer, it's not going there. No, it could be
gonna
anything.
say my
Creativity,
eyes was like,
emotion.
what
I
is this
know.
boob tube?
Exactly. Somebody else asked those. I had to preface it with someone. I'm like, this sounds bad, but it's not. It's not what you think. So what
Don't
turn
worry, I'm British. We understand.
and you're like, I know this code. But yeah, what would be something that it just stirs you, whether it's creatively, spiritually, or emotionally? It could be anything.
Well, funny enough, in terms of things like that, it's obviously watching old programs or TV shows or watching anything that I love. So, for example, Top Gear.
Mm,
You know, love Top Gear. Before they replaced Clarkson, May, and Hammond. You know, after that,
yeah.
Top Gear sucks. But anyway, when they were there, that was my favorite show of all time, and it used to inspire me. It was what inspired me to do color grading, which I still do. You know, you see it in my videos when you see my face, but um, things like that inspire me. Watching documentaries inspire me. Of course, listening to soundtracks. We mentioned Outlaws before. That
Right.
inspires me, and then getting a retro console and playing it on the actual system, um, and recording that also inspires me because it makes me feel legit, and it also makes me feel that I'm giving viewers the true experience,
Right.
that they get. You know, it's not emulated. It's not. You know, it's just the system as it is, but just upscaled so it works in modern times. But things like that inspire me, along with just cars in general and rallying. I love rallying so much. Rally sport. I mentioned WRC2 Extreme. I love the old Colin McRae games, but those are what inspire me whenever I'm in, whenever I feel that I need to get inspiration, I'll do any one of those things above and I'll get inspiration immediately.
That works. Now, on the exact opposite, what turns you off? And that could be anything.
Well, we discussed really foul or inappropriate or awful words like lit. Um, but I think reality TV is a turn off. Not all of it, obviously, but most of it is just no. I
Yeah.
just feel brain dead when I watch those. Other things that turn me off are not just games, just anything that has no soul, no passion, feels like it was made with the company's balance sheet in mind, feels like it was made to be a tick sheet,
Mm-hmm.
you know, mass produced to an extent. Um, what also turns me off creatively is when you find somebody who claims to want to do something and then doesn't do it, or they're just
Yeah.
rubbish, or they
Yeah.
or they rip you off. And so
That.
I just don't like when aspects of a product that could be decent becomes half baked instead. And I hate when things are half baked or done with no personality or soul or passion or anything like that.
Right. That superficiality.
Yeah, more often than not.
Yeah. Now, what is your favorite curse word?
I don't actually swear that much, being honest with you. So I don't actually have a favorite curse word, but one I do use a lot when I am angry is, just shit. Or
Right. Yep. That's a simple, perfect word. It can
I
encompass
guess
so much.
I guess damn's another one as well, but I don't really swear that much. I tend to use other words.
Right.
You heard the aforementioned sod and fuzz,
Yeah. Um,
um, but
that's
but shit is the one that comes out the most if I do swear.
yeah. There's always one that slips out. It's that one word that just damn is an easy one. You know what I
Oh no,
mean?
sorry, I'm an idiot. Sorry, no, my favorite swear word, if one does come out more often than not, is bastard. That's my
Oh,
favorite one.
there's a phrase I used to say filthy bastard all the time when I get upset at
Yeah,
something. But yeah, I like that
yeah,
word. It's a fun one.
I was playing the said game earlier, WRC2, and I was trying to get the fastest time I could possibly do, and I kept hitting rocks. I went, "Oh, you bastard!"
Yep. I like that word a lot. I like a lot of curse words in some contexts is because it's all about placement that makes it perfect. You're like, yes, that's what I wanted right there. That word encompasses all of the irritations of my day.
I think I think one day I need to release a clip on Twitter or whatever platform of me trying to play the said game, hardcore, and you'll understand why I'm trying to be fast. And you go, how does he go that fast? If I tried to do that, I'd flip the car and break it.
Right. Exactly. Okay. What sound or noise do you love?
The sound,
Or
ooh,
noise?
ooh, noise. Oh, okay, so
Yeah, it can be a
easy.
sound or noise.
What easy? A turbo on a vehicle? Not obviously not like
Mm-hmm.
that, but not like that, but so again, anything with turbo, so rally cars, tuned cars,
Right.
Japanese cars with turbo. Also, another noise, VTEC. You've always heard the phrase, my VTEC kicks in.
Yeah. Yep, I know that.
Oh my god. Yeah. Just what?
You're like,
Just
my
you go
body is
from
ready.
if you want to know what life is like, get a Honda with VTEC. It doesn't have to be like a fast one, just anything with VTEC. Go up to 6,000 RPM, go past that, and you'll go from 2 miles an hour to warp speed.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You
We have
know,
a we have a car lover in the
yeah.
household, so yeah, he's all about that. He's always like, "That's an amazing sound. It's amazing. You don't
I,
understand."
to me, old rally cars from the 90s and 2000s have the best sound, in my opinion. That's another reason why I love rally games so much, just the noise they make.
Right.
Again, just you hear outside. When a rally car makes that noise. I mean, obviously for you, obviously rallying is not as big as it is in Europe. In Europe, we're rally
Yeah.
mad, or we used to be. Not so much anymore, but we still are rally mad enough. But rally cars from the 90s and 2000s, and even the 80s, actually, they make the best sound in the world.
Yep.
Seriously, Audi Quattro, Lancia Delta S4, Subaru Imprezas, Mitsubishi,
Mm.
Citroen, Ford Focus, Ford Fiesta, Citroen C4, Peugeot 307, Escort Cosworth, Toyota Celica, sorry, cars like that.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to listen to them, and when you play the games and you're in the actual, you get the actual legit noises. It's the best noises ever. So that's my favorite sounds. Most rally cars. We'll go with that, and cars with turbos
Okay. Now
and VTEC.
on the
VTEC.
on the opposite side of that, what noise or sound do you hate?
I hate when chavs tune up. Well, we call them chavs here. I hate when chavs tune up cars because they sound like shit.
Oh, yeah.
They just get like the loudest exhaust, not a good one, just a loud one. Look
Right.
at my car. You just all you
Yeah.
hear is a loud, crappy exhaust noise. Another noise I hate is just when you speak to somebody and they speak in a certain way, and they try to come across as like they're it and they're not. I hate that as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Yeah, I've talked.
Another
They
Yeah.
refer to themselves in third person. You're like, oh, I need to
Oh,
go.
like Mr. Whoever this is did this. I think, shut up. No, that's you. Be quiet.
You're like, okay, I'm gonna go now. You can talk to yourself. It's really creepy. Um,
Oh, I know. It's like you're trying to hype yourself up, but you have no hype
right.
behind you.
Exactly. You're like, okay. Well, that's like your first red flag when somebody refers to themselves in the third person. You're like, I'm gonna go. Like, this is my time to leave. This is getting weird.
I think
Okay.
another noise I hate before we go is just mopeds. I don't like the noise of
Oh,
mopeds.
yeah. That's an annoying little, like, I don't know. It sounds like it puts. It put, put, put. And it has
Yeah,
a
it's a
high
very
pitch.
crackly noise. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not nice.
I don't like it. Now, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt? So that could be anything you've ever wanted to try, outside of what you're trying right now, whatever that is.
Well, I'm trying for media right now,
Okay.
hence the whole production side and stuff like that. Obviously, university degree allowed me to learn a lot more about that, and I've applied that to all my videos.
Right.
Um, Profession, well, easy rally driving.
Mm-hmm.
Easy, easy. I'm always watching the old WRC when it was really good, and I'm always inspired. I'm like, yes, come on! I wish I was doing that.
So a rally driver. That'd be cool. That'd be very cool. It's one of those things that it's always been of
You could see,
interest. Horrified
yeah.
but excited at the same time. You're like, that looks horrifying, but I want to do it. So yeah.
Could you imagine me in the back roads of Wales doing handbrake turns and shouting power, power, power?
Or better yet, just yelling, bastard.
Yeah, and I go hit a rock. You absolute, and then you just have to cut it off there because I'm just so mad. I get to the end. So, Mr. Burden, what's your problem? The steering wheel's broken. And I
Oh.
just go, listen, I don't want to hear it.
No.
Shutting down all the interviews. No interviews. No, no, no. Steering car broken. No, fail, fail, fail.
Now, what profession would you not like to do?
How many professions would you not want to do in your life?
I know, I know. Like, is there one that sticks out and you're like, no, absolutely not? That wouldn't even be like like that'd be an absolute no from the get start. There wouldn't be any.
Anything to do with trying to be sexy.
Oh,
So anything where you have to look good in the profession. No thanks, I'm okay.
yeah, the high maintenance thing of,
Yeah.
yeah,
The clothes, you have to wear this, you have to do certain moves and pull those stupid poses. And I just go, okay, whatever. Anyway,
right.
uh, I mean that, and I would try to avoid doing anything to do with serving customers. I could learn to do it, I just wouldn't enjoy it because you get some customers who are fine, and you get ones who are like, I demand refund. So there you go.
Yep.
Those kind of people.
Yeah, it's.
Also,
I'm sorry, go
that noise I did there, where I did that strange noise. That's the noise. That noise represents a complaining customer,
ahead.
or a boss who's, a bad boss. I mean,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just use that to simulate that kind of person.
I do like the Muppet noises, like when they're like bark bark, and kind of like a Charlie Brown teacher talking, but like more like balking, like balk at people, because like that's what they sound like when they're going off.
No,
So,
what they sound like is customers who are desperate. Some of them have legit reasons to be that way, and that's fine. But most of them just nah.
hmm, it's true. Okay, last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You've got a brand new car. It's called Citroen.
You get a car upon entry. Not a bad deal. Like Price is Right in a sense, or something, one of those game shows.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just he says Citroen because why Citroen? Just not Ford, not Subaru, not Bugatti, not Lamborghini, not Ferrari. Citroen because Citroen.
Right. Now, I want to thank you for hanging out with me for today and having a nice chat. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. I'm
Uh,
like, oh wow,
Thank
time
you.
did fly.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. No, thank you for having me. It's been an honor. I've thoroughly enjoyed the chat. I've absolutely loved it, and I'm thankful that you called me to do this. It's been great. I've loved it.
I'm so glad. And for the audience, once again, who maybe are fast forward through the video, or maybe they're, picking up where they left off earlier. Go ahead and plug where people can find you on social media. I know that you are on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram, but tell people where they can find you more directly. I'll have your links in the description box for them, and also any projects you have coming up.
Okay, so obviously, with regards of where to find me, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram are your main three. Those are the ones I just focus on. To be frank with you, those are Twitter. You'll find me. Obviously, I try to post there as much as I can. I obviously answer messages. And in regards to projects that are coming up, obviously, this Sunday, recording this video again, is my look at my favorite video game soundtracks of recent times. Then after that, I've got my first look at a PS2 demo disc. It was the last one I ever bought, but we're going to be going over that in detail. Then there'll be one more video where I discuss in detail Ridge Racer Type 4 for the PlayStation 1. I do have a few more projects that I'm interested in, but I'm not going to announce them because it's too early for those. I haven't even got to the planning stage yet, but I have one that I was recording that I might do in detail, and it's a game series that I love, but I am going to cover the first game only in this particular video if I decide to go for it. And lastly, obviously season 3 is concluding soon. So if you guys out there haven't seen my channel or season 3, I recommend you do. I think you'll enjoy it. It'll be long-winded. All the episodes are quite long, so sorry, but you'll hopefully enjoy what's on offer on the channel, and hopefully you guys just enjoy what's there. That's the most important thing, really, and you just have a good time reminiscing about the good old times. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and your channel has a lot of. Your content has grown and it's developing, and I highly recommend everyone check him out. The Affro Show is one of those channels where you can go back and find not only quality explanations about the games, but have that experience again. And that is the greater purpose too, I think, with gaming, is having that passion for the game, to have the experience again, to kind of relive those moments. And I don't think, everyone games on their channels, and, whether it's newer games or older games, that's fine. But I think there's a passion that's required in gaming that we've lost slowly, with people trying to just exploit the pure idea of making money as opposed to enjoying the game for what it is, and all of the mechanics that go into it, all the details, and the quality of the type of gaming. So I highly recommend everyone check out the Affro Show's channel, and I'll have all of his links in the description box. And he's active on Twitter. You'll see him on Instagram. He's active on his channel, and he'll be posting different stuff all the time. So aside from, if you're catching this particular interview like later on, go check out his channel and just see the content he has up. I'm sure he'll have plenty up there with different, themes and different games that he's focusing on in different consoles and platforms. But I really appreciate you coming on and hanging out today, and spending that extra time, because I know it gets a little hectic, everyone, because we are having a bit of a time difference here. But, families come first, of course. But I'm really, really glad that you were able to hang out today and have a chat.
Yes, it's been an honor, and thank you for having me. I've loved it, and well, I look forward to the future to see what happens next.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone who's watching, thank you so much for hanging out, listening to the conversation. Check out the Affro Show's channel. I'm going to end up like stumbling on words. It's fantastic. It's the way it goes. But I want to thank everyone for listening. Everyone have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. And I'll see you guys next time.